What's up, everybody? Dan here with Next Level. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about all things clutching. So we're going to head in here to Starting Line Products here in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and we're going to let these guys, the team of professionals in here, tell us how we can make these things work. I don't know why I need this, but I think I do. I mean, that thing is 25 pounds of ridiculousness. Where does that go, Jerry?
You don't want to know.
Oh, it's right here. Where's this? A drill vat? Oh, nope, that's not it. I mean, you
There's a camera?
You are absolutely a natural. All right, you guys. Here we go.
Oh, there is a camera.
Take
It's 27.
at least 27.
We've been here for 3 days.
27. that's 27. That's how many years you've been here at SOP? 20. Way more than that.
he doesn't want to admit it.
All right, guys, welcome back. I am really excited about today. These are two, well, obviously industry professionals, but really great friends of mine, and we are here at Starting Line Products. One of the most asked, one of the most talked about videos in Next Level history is, let's do a video about clutching. Please do a video about clutching. So that's what we're here to do and to talk about and discuss. We have got Dustin Pancheri. Dustin, I've known Dustin for a big part of my career as a snowmobiler. Dustin works for Climb now, but for about 18 years worked for SOP and is part of the mastermind here in terms of clutching and all things performance. Jerry Matthews goes without saying, buddy, and it's great to see you. You have been here how long?
Since 1988.
Since 1988. I'm trying to remember what
Can't
cars
do the
were out there.
math
Was there an iPhone? Did we have one? We probably didn't.
No, we didn't
There
have
certainly
that.
was no social media. Whether YouTube was out or not, I can't remember any of those. Anyway, guys, I am so happy to have you guys here. We are going to talk about all things clutching, so let's get into it. This is so much pressure that I put on the channel. It's got to be here. Quiet on the set! All right, pro tips time, you guys. Pro tips time. So what are, if I'm going to just come up with 5, what are the top 5 things that everybody needs and wants to know about clutch performance? And take the
Top
floor.
5 RPM.
Yeah, RPM's got to be number 1.
Yeah.
What about RPM? What about it?
Well, you got to know, number 1, what RPM you're targeting. Is it 8200? Is it 8400? Is it 7900? What is it? And number 2, what RPM is your sled performing at right now? At wide open throttle, you know, full load, hard pull.
Yeah.
Where are you at on your RPM?
Okay.
Which means you might have to clean the snow off the gauge, you know, and get a good straight run where you can see what you're doing, but that's the only way to tell.
And they'd actually have to take the gauge and get it off of miles per hour and go to RPM.
RPM.
Which every rental sled I have goes to miles per hour. Got to
Straight
change
up.
that back. Yeah. All right, so RPM, guys, are number 1. What is number 2?
Back to belt deflection.
Gotta be back to belt deflection.
All right, so what is belt deflection for those that are watching and they're like, oh my God, what is belt deflection? And why is it important?
If you push down on the belt, with the engine off obviously, push down on the belt between the 2 clutches, it's how much distance you can push that belt down. I normally like to see 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches of belt deflection. That's typically what you said.
Yeah, you want that belt deflection basically about as tight as you can get it without trying to make the track move.
Yeah.
So that's going to give you the most efficiency at engagement.
And so when the sled is squealing, right, and you
It's
can
too
actually
tight.
kind of see it kind of on cruise control, that belt deflection is too tight,
Could be
correct?
on the tight
Yep,
side, yeah.
it's a little on the tight side.
Yeah.
I want it to be almost there.
Yeah.
So if it's squealing, once in a while it chirps, then you're probably okay. But if
That's how you beat your
We're
buddy.
really getting down
We're
on
getting
the line
really close there, but-
you don't have to be quite that specific.
All right, so pro tip number 2 is belt deflection, what people need to know. Number 3, guys.
The clutches are wear items. They need to be serviced.
Okay.
There's parts that wear out in them that'll affect the performance and the durability of the clutch.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they have to be consistently checked, and when it's time to do maintenance, replace those parts. If you go too long on a clutch without doing maintenance, You'll wear parts out far enough that you can't replace them, then you got to replace the whole clutch.
Right.
So if you stay on top of it, you're going to maximize your performance, your durability, and your pocketbook.
Right. Absolutely.
So-
So cleaning your clutches and then also inspecting your belt, right? So belt condition. I mean, that's got to be one of these as well, right?
That's number 4.
It is.
Number 4.
Yeah.
Number 4 is the pro tip. See, I don't need these.
You're
guys.
just
I got
leading
it.
in there. We
All
got,
right,
we got the pro right
so-
here.
So wear items. All right, so let's talk about it. So belt wear. When is it a good time? Is it a certain miles? Like, what is it?
It's based off performance.
It is based off performance. For me, when I start losing a little bit of RPM, like 100 RPM off of what I'm normally used to, I'll try changing the belt first and see if my performance comes back. If it does, then I know it was just with a belt. If it doesn't, then I go into other things as well. I'm also looking at mileage. For me, on a mountain sled, the way I ride, typically I'm getting somewhere between 700 and 1,000 miles, maybe 1,200 miles out of them. But for you, Dan, maybe at 500 miles, it's time to change it.
Yeah, and
So-
and we like to use that 500 mark, and so does Polaris. I know they do it. As around 500 miles is a great time to, well, at least start paying attention.
Yeah, check and inspect,
Really
yeah.
start looking at it and inspecting belt wear because it plays a big role in performance.
And if you're adjusting your belt deflection, that was item number 2, you're going to be able to tell how many times you've adjusted it and kind of get a feel for that wear. And you're going to know, hey, I've adjusted this 5, 6, 7 times. Okay, that belt's got to starting to get pretty worn. I better start thinking about replacing this belt.
So a lot of people's performance or lack thereof performance is answered in the first sections of these, right? In terms of worn out belt or belt deflection, they didn't clean their clutches and they got 1,000 mountain miles on it. There's a lot of those things that are right there that it's not even about the additional performance parts, it's about the parts that they've got that aren't working properly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
And normally, those are the items that don't cost anything to do either.
Yeah.
I mean, belts are
little bit of
expensive,
time.
but
little
most
bit
of
of
this other stuff is some time.
Well, you wait and you buy a clutch, then it gets really expensive, right? And
for
that's
sure.
just operator error or lack thereof.
Or have one
Wanting to-
fly apart and then you're buying even more parts. That's a dangerous scenario. Don't get to that point.
Don't get to that
No.
spot. All right, we got to keep going. What's the next one?
Calibration, generalized calibration.
Yeah, this is good.
So I think one of the biggest questions I got was, well, if you can make it run better, why didn't the factory do it? And the answer is the OEMs have a really big job. They have to calibrate for a really wide range of conditions, right? The snow in Colorado is different than Sierra cement or Wyoming or Montana. It might be heavier, it might be lighter, or there's other things like rider weight and things like that. So these OEMs are putting together a calibration that's going to work in a really wide range of conditions for a lot of people, and that's great. That's a hard thing to do. They have to do a lot of testing, but we can make it better for ourselves, right? If I'm going to ride in this condition all the time at this altitude and my weight's not changing,
rider
I
weight
can
and your-
fine tune that
Yeah.
calibration to be more efficient and ride better in that condition, right? So clutch kits or whatever, it might be aftermarket components or sometimes OEM components, but there are tools to help you fine tune that for what you're going to do, right?
Correct. Yeah, and it goes into more detail than that. We can actually get more performance to the snow in other areas that we're looking for. Say I'm a tree rider, for instance. Our weights that we do in these clutches, they're a heavy heel design, and they clamp the belt tighter in that low to mid speed range area, and rather than turning it into belt heat and wear, it turns it into performance, puts it right to the track, turns it
Nice.
into traction. And so there are things that we can do to make it quite a bit better than what it came out in stock form. The OEs have done a very good job. I'm the first one to say that. If you have an OE sled that's stock with stock components in the clutches and it's calibrated for the elevation that you're riding, it's going to run good. It really is. But we can make it run better. And that's what I like about it.
Well, and that's what I like about it too. I love finding. I mean, obviously, just like you said. I mean, kudos to the OEMs, right? These manufacturers, they have to build these things, just like we were talking about with suspension. They have to build things for a pretty broad spectrum of riders, right? Can't just be narrowed into the guys that, let's say, just love to tree ride at a certain elevation with a certain snowpack at a certain rider weight. I mean, that shows you how many variables are involved there. So the fact that Starting Line Products has really, you've come up with specifics. You've been able to say, well, given that this is what you're going to do and this is what you like to do, we have a package that's already packaged together. Where people fail is they don't know what they're doing, And they, instead of doing what I would do, and that's trust a reputable company that has done that work, you guys have done the homework. And you guys have gone in there and you've built these packages where it doesn't mean that we can't make minor tweaks from there. But if you don't know what you're doing with clutching and you just start throwing things at it and doing this, this, and this, a lot of times, just like with suspension, that can go south in a hurry. Don't you guys agree?
Yeah, for sure. And being on the both sides of that, when I was here and now that I'm not here, I don't know if people realize how much time and testing it takes to reach a reputable, reliable product.
Yeah.
People can try stuff all they want, but to go out and write down conditions and verify calibration and make sure you're recreating a baseline and have a baseline sled and have a test sled, there's a lot of time and money and effort that goes into it. So once you've kind of gone through that process and realized we've done it wrong this many times, but we've kind of figured it out right this many, and we've done it enough to figure out that durability is going to be there and the performance is going to be there, it's a lot of time, a lot of effort. So you don't necessarily need to do that yourself. Call somebody who's already been done it and let them kind of do the work pay a little bit and let them do the work for you.
Certainly. Well, I understand, guys, that we could create a video that is just so dang long talking about all this stuff at once, but let's not. Let's dive into each one of these things specifically. So you guys on the channel, let's look for some clutching videos that are more specific. Like one video we're going to talk about just the driven clutch. Then we're going to talk about the drive clutch. Then we'll talk about those specifics. And that way we can just dive into each one of those things, because there's a lot to learn with each one of these. And I'm sort of a sponge, just sort of soaking up a lot of this thing. But for today, the pro tips were freaking awesome, you guys, those top 5. So RPM, knowing what your sled's RPM is, so you know kind of what the goal is there, right? Understanding belt deflection and why that is important. Understanding the belt condition and even the clutching conditions. When is it time to change the belt? When is it time to clean your clutches? You've got a 3 or 4 year old sled and you've never touched either of those things, chances are all of the performance or lack thereof is in the clutches, in the clutches themselves and or the belt life, right? And then we're gonna end that up with what we talked about, right? Trusting that reputable source that has built these kits, that understand what clutching is, and then that way you've got a great baseline and or someone you can go to help you with those clutching questions, right? So you guys remember that in the link or in the drop down below, we're going to give information about Starting Line. We talked about a lot of stuff today and kind of narrowed it down to these top 5 things, but the clutching video has to be a to be continued type of a thing here so that we can get all of this in. We really appreciate it, guys. Hope you guys had a good time with this. I know I did. You guys remember to leave those questions and comments down below. Subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time.